Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Gene Coltes. I'm presiding member for today's meeting. I have with me Karen Hyde, Deputy Presiding Member, and John Simon, Specialist Member. And we have online councillors Dudek and Olo from the City of Stirling. I'll declare the meeting open at 9:37 a.m. And I acknowledge we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And we acknowledge the Aboriginal people as traditional custodians of Western Australia. We pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters, and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the Planning and Development Act or Regulations, 2011. The meeting is being live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the regulations, and the members are invited to announce their name and title prior to speaking. Panel members during the meeting may refer to technical devices to assist them in considering the information before them. I have an apology for the meeting today, and that's Councillor Suzanne McDowell. Item 3 on our agenda is members on leave of absence. There are none. Item 4, we have on that previous meeting minutes are available on that website. Part B of the agenda is discussion and decision making on the item before us. Before we go on, I'll ask all panel members to declare that they have duly considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, that also includes our 13 direction response published on 18 October.
Yes.
Item 2, declaration of interest. I have none at the moment, although there's a standing declaration for council members that may have considered the item on the agenda at council meeting. Moving on, we have before us the item, and which is the Child Care Centre on 279283 Harborne Street in Glendalough, and in accordance with DAP Standing Orders, we have some presentations limited to 3 minutes each. The first presenter, Mr. James Shaw.
Presentation.
Yeah, sure. I just put it on a USB. Is that
It was
just
just the one we paid
that?
for.
Just the one
Yeah.
page.
I'll get that.
Can I see it now as well?
So it's just yeah.
I can see that. Perfect. Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Shaw. Remind you, we have 3 minutes nationally.
Okay. So see most of it. Okay, so this tree here is potentially a climbing hazard. Children can climb it, jump into this pool. So we're thinking maybe it needs to be removed or something needs to be done. So, we bought this property purely because this house was here in the way, blocking noise from the road. So this road noise goes directly to our house. In this plan here, there's no house, it's all being removed, and there's nothing blocking the sound at all. So noise from the child care centre, but also noise from the road is the problem really in this scenario. So potentially, could something be done to put some additional noise reduction or something along there? The plans show that say that it's all gated off, but the actual drawings and diagrams don't show that there's any gating or anything like that to this car park. So, and the final one that I'd like to bring up is this car park seems to be quite dangerous. We've nearly been run over a couple of times in just the space of a couple of weeks. I'm worried about children and the line of sight from walking through this walkway and then potentially getting hit by a car on this road here. So I've got a bunch of other things, but they're not as important. If you want to read them in your own time, that would be fine as well. But those 3 or 4 pretty much the main points of the topic, really.
Okay, thank you, James. Panel members, I'll invite questions, Mr. Shaw, at this stage, if you have any.
Sure.
Councillor.
If I may just ask regarding the tree that was identified as a climbing hazard, is that tree currently there, or is it one of the proposed trees in the development?
Michael, that is a proposed tree, I think, not currently there.
Can I clarify the size of that tree with the proponents during their presentation?
The applicant has said that any potential hazard with the pool would be completely my responsibility in the future. So that's a very scary thing for me, really. So there's only so much I can do on my property, but I can't do it on somebody else's.
I'll just raise a query. There are other trees on your boundary for that block of units next door to you. Do they present a hazard?
Their children, potentially, I would say. But again, it's not my property, so I can't do much about it, really. Their children are quite grown up, so
well,
not as much.
There's a turnover of people in the block of units, I'm sure. But okay, we'll query that with the proponents. So, Karen, you have a query?
Thank you, President. Karen Hyde. You obviously have some concerns around the safety around your pool, but your pool, I presume, has fencing around it, and your property has fencing around it too. What are the dimensions? What is the height of the fencing around your property?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but it's about my height, so maybe 1.6 meters or so. The fencing goes along here and like that.
Yes.
Like that. And then this fence is just between the properties and the adjacent, but actual pool black fencing is along here.
So you have fencing around your pool, and part of the fencing around your pool is the boundary fencing.
And part of it is the boundary, and this tree is the boundary. So this fence here is boundary. There's the tree. There's the boundary. There's the pool. So
but I presume, for my second part of the question, I presume that, as with most local governments, there are pool inspections carried out by the City of Stirling.
yes, there was one done a couple of months ago, and another one will be in 4 years' time.
Right. So on the basis that you're consistent with the City of Stirling rules and regulations in terms of your pool, that's, I presume, all that you can do.
Yeah, that's all I can do.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Ollo?
Thank you. What I'm asking is where the car park is. Mr. Shaw asked, sorry, is it Mr. Shaw?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. About the noise coming from the car park from the road. What kind of fencing has it got that's adjoined to the car park at the present moment?
At the moment, it is this house. So it's not even just fencing; it's a whole house blocking out the noise. And once it's gone, it's just an empty car park with this tiny little wall that's about 1.6 meters high. So we bought this whole property because it had this house, because it wasn't against the Hartbourne Street. So this is massively detrimental to the price of my property and the well-being of my fiance, who's an emergency worker doctor who works night shift. So I don't mean to cause problems or anything, but this is definitely something. And I don't have an exact solution for you other than maybe we plant some more trees along here, or we make this wall a bit bigger, or the actual proposed daycare is moved southwards, so it would block out the sound directly to the property, but I don't want to cause too many problems.
Thank you. Has there been any consultation regarding the fencing that's adjoining your property and the car park?
No, there hasn't. But as you quoted before, the inspector did come a couple of months ago and said the fencing's looking a bit old and decrepit. It's going to be needed to be replaced in the next 4 years or so, but not instantaneously. So maybe 4 to 8 years kind of thing. So, and no, there has been no consultation about the fencing from any parties other than the City of Stirling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Shaw? If not, thank you, Mr. Shaw. You can resume your seat, please. And I'll ask Danielle Davison from Davison Advisory to
Thank you very much.
do a presentation. Thank you. Danielle, you heard Mr. Shaw's presentation. There are a number of issues in your presentation. You may be able to elaborate on some of the issues that he has raised.
I think I can probably provide a bit of comfort as well with some of the issues that have been raised, or I hope I can provide some comfort.
Thank you.
So good morning, presiding member and panel members, everybody else. Thank you for permitting me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant. My name is Danielle Davison. I'm from Davison Advisory, and I'm here with the consultant team, Joe Germano, John Hurley, and Ashley Maple, and we're available to answer any of your questions. As you will have seen, the development application seeks approval for a childcare premises opposite a Glendelow Shopping Centre, which is an activity centre. The application was submitted to the City of Stirling following an quite extensive pre-lodgement consultation and design review, ensuring any issues were identified and addressed early on prior to the lodgement, which has led to what we believe has been a collaborative and fairly seamless process. It's often really easy to forget when reviewing plans that have been in the making for as many months as this has been, how much effort and thought has gone into the final product. And the landowner, as you will have seen, is also the landowner of the shopping centre next door. And it was his vision to create a complementary use where parents could pick up dinner and the kids at the same time. And hence you see this thoroughfare from the car parking to the shopping centre. It was also the landowner's vision to create with the tenant, and we've had a tenant on board from the very beginning, a very leafy environment. And it was with great regret that the trees that everyone was so excited about initially were actually identified as either too sharp or too poisonous for young children. So you'll see in the application there, the landowner has provided double the amount of tree planting in an attempt to try to replace what we're losing. That tree I can't speak to the size of in the corner, although that the neighbour has identified as a concern. Obviously, that would be a concern for the childcare operator as well. Generally, the trees are either pruned if they're of climbing risk, or they're usually too spindly, but this one I believe is a larger one, hence it's shown on the plans. Climbing hazards generally in a childcare environment are watched closely and monitored. So any branches that children will climb on would be pruned as and when required. But again, we're happy to look at that if it continues to be a concern. The outdoor play spaces, the architect and myself from the very beginning had a look at what was the impact of the outdoor play spaces on the surrounding houses. And although the plan's not up, hopefully you can visualise it. We've deliberately tried to locate those play spaces on the outdoor areas because if particularly on the side boundary, there was what would likely be bedrooms. So we've tried to locate play space to the front nearest the road and the play space to the rear. So you've got younger children, older children, where to the rear, as you can see, the swimming pool and outdoor areas to try and minimise the impact of any child play areas on the surrounding residents. So that solid fencing, I think it may have even been an after note in the documents, but it was something that came up in after our submission, that would be a solid masonry wall and there'd be a 1.8 metre high. So that would definitely, I imagine, have an impact on any noise amelioration from the road as well. So as you know, infill presents many challenges. It is a very busy road. We sit on a very busy road and that provides challenges as well as opportunities. And for us, the opportunity is it's a really well located road on public transport, and 80% of the staff in these centres do come from public transport to and from work. It also provides great opportunity for parents doing the school run or commuting into the city. So we, the design team, made a genuine wholehearted attempt to provide high quality space for the children and the staff, whilst trying our best to minimise the impact on the streetscape and the surrounds. We hope that that's evident in the plans that you have before you. The city's report, responsible authority report, contains a recommendation to approve the development subject to conditions. On behalf of the landowner and project team, we're pleased with this recommendation and supportive of the officer's recommendation. I think I've addressed all the main issues.
Okay, yes, thank you, Danielle. Panel members, do you have any questions of Danielle? Councillor Ola?
Thank you for your deputation. My question is, okay, Mr. Shaw's concern about the noise factor from the road. Now, he suggested trees maybe around the fencing, but to me, it's not. We're talking about his concern about a tree in the childcare that children can climb. Well, that would be the same issue if you put tree along the fencing, the boundary fencing, because then someone still can climb the trees and into the pool area. Is there any, I can understand where he's coming from with regarding to the noise factor and having an emergency worker doing night shift. Would there be any room for consultation with the neighbours to see what we can do to reduce the noise factor from the road?
I mean, we're open to discussion. I think you would find once we put a masonry wall there that any sound that could be reasonably expected of a proponent to have to deal with, because ordinarily we could have just put a colour-bond fence there. I would say that is probably the limit of what would be reasonable to expect of any neighbour. Having said that, having done a lot of noise modelling in my 25 years, sound actually travels upwards, not across. So I think a lot of that, because of the distance separation from the road, I think with the wall and that distance, I think the concerns maybe, I mean, we could look at getting it modelled, but I guess by saying consultation, what I don't want to do is give false hope that we'll start talking about double glazing and things like that, because it's just not something that would be reasonably expected of the landlord.
With the tree in the daycare where the concern is there room to move it somewhere else without losing a tree in that centre?
Definitely happy to. I mean, the problem is we really want a tree on that boundary because it provides shading, because that is the western face. And actually, I think we'll find that tree came from a request of one of the DRP members. So there's a bit of a push and pull. I mean, we're very keen, and that tree was because the DRP members were keen not to see too many shade sales. But I mean, we're going to have shade sales regardless because they're necessary to protect the children from the sun. But the answer is yes. We're very happy to look with council and council's landscaping department to have a look at whether we can move that tree along. I mean, there'll be climbing equipment, children, because of the nature of a masonry fence, it's very difficult to climb up. So as by the time a child's got to the top of a 1.8 metre high tree, you've probably got bigger issues there, which is highly unlikely. But yes is the answer. Very happy to have a look at it. I wouldn't want to see it lost, so we would look to try and find a home somewhere else in the property for it for sure.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Councillor Dudek?
Yeah, just a quick one on the fencing. Would the applicant be willing to consider a higher fence? Is there a standard one in your experience that is a lot more effective? Say, would a 2 metre high fence as opposed to the 1.8 metre minimise noise, or in your experience?
I'm not an acoustic engineer. I'm a civil engineer though. I really don't think that the 1.8 versus 2, they are structurally different, and even councils, you need a DA for, although we're in a DA process here, they're treated very differently. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the solution. But also, what I'm conscious of is also not blocking out our sunlight either, because we want sun into the area. We could look at if we were doing a colour-bond fence in the car parking area, I would suggest we could look at an extra 300 high screening, but then that would be a trade-off between the solid masonry and the screening that you see it quite often on top of colour-ons, but an extra height masonry wall. Once you start going over height, you start getting into much more sort of structural elements as well. And I just am loath to commit to that without evidence requiring it. You know, it is standard everywhere. And if we were building a house, we would be putting in a 1.8 metre high wall there, and we might have a carport there. Really, I think we could be jumping at shadows here.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Nothing further.
Councillor, you've got another one question?
Thank you to the City of Stirling officers. Can I ask a question to them at the moment, please?
I'll just leave them until later. If we'll
Okay.
leave them if there are any other questions. Yes, Mr. Syme,
Thank you.
thanks, Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah. Yeah, just to confirm, your west elevation shows a colourblind fence on that boundary. You're confirming that actually should be a masonry fence?
Yeah, it's in the in the notes. So it came after we submitted the plans. Okay. So rather than amending the plans, it's in the City of Stirling notes there that we were to do.
There's a big thermal difference between a colourblind fence and masonry.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Acoustic.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, Karen, go ahead.
Again, just referring back to Mr. Shaw's comment regarding the safety of pedestrian crossing across the car parks and so forth. And I think in the context of the reciprocal arrangement that's being proposed and dealing with the shortfall of car parking for the childcare facility, it's proposed that there's a reciprocal arrangement, and therefore one would imagine plenty of crossing to and fro for children and caregivers, etc. What's your assessment of the safety of that, and how is pedestrian safety particularly to be facilitated versus speed and thoroughfare of vehicles, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, we do imagine most of the parents will actually be using the car park unless they are specifically doing shopping at the same time. But we spent quite a lot of time in the DRP. We had 2 DRPs on this particular element, and how do we really highlight that there is a walkway through there? How are other vehicles coming and going? Not necessarily anything to do with it. And so you'll see on the plans there that we've, with the yellow and the black, really visually try to make people aware that there is something there, the opening is there. And as far as once they enter into the car park side, I guess there's very little we can do in a car park that anyone can do in a car park. It is quite a quiet car park, which is why the assessment said it was, fine. The hours are actually quite opposite. So when the childcare is busy, the shopping centre is quiet. It's busy during the day because of the nature of the area that's in. So we spent a lot of time looking at it, and we don't feel that there's any more risk from this environment with the work that we've done. It was really creating an awareness of there's an opening there, and people could be aware that pedestrians may be coming. And as you can see, that big overarching concrete, what we call it, archway, arbour. There wasn't much more that we could do to slow down or make cars slow down in that environment, but certainly making them aware that pedestrians could be coming was a priority, and we feel that we've done that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions to be presented? If not, thank you, Danielle. We may seek clarification on some other issues, but at the moment, if the panel members have any queries of council staff, Councillor Ollo.
Thank you. To the City of Stirling staff, we're talking about the sound barrier. Is there any way we can suggest something that would stop the noise factor with different materials for fencing, or the height, like Councillor Dudak said? Would that help with the sound?
Through the chair, the acoustic report submitted as part of the application notes a 2 metre higher fencing is to be provided on that western boundary. So based on the acoustic report submitted, the city's satisfied that that provides the noise attenuation measures. Thank you.
Those 2 metre high masonry fence.
Through the chair, it's a 2 metre high colour-bond fence on that western boundary. The masonry fence is required along the outdoor play area.
Okay, fine.
I believe it may be a 2 metre higher fencing as existing.
Yep, and condition 4 covers details of fencing anyway. So
That's correct.
thank you. Any other questions of the staff?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at condition number 4 regarding the fencing, which says that any fencing abutting residential properties is to be of masonry construction or modular fencing system. But you're saying the fence is on the western side. Is that the side abutting the property is 2 metres but a colour bond fence?
Through the chair, the requirement for the masonry fencing relates to the outdoor play areas only, and that's as per the city's local planning policy 6.4 childcare premises. So the intent of that provision and condition is to mitigate noise from vibration and also noise to residential properties. It doesn't relate to the car parking area. And as per the submitted acoustic report, it was only a 2 metre fence with no specifications for materials required to the car park.
Fair enough. Now, given that there is the concern about noise from the road coming through to the property, do you think that it would be reasonable to add a condition to require that masonry fence at 2 metres high be provided along that stretch of fencing on the car park that they're concerned about?
Through the chair, the submitted acoustic report doesn't require it, and then the city's local planning policy only relates to the outdoor play areas to mitigate that noise. So from the city's perspective, it wouldn't be required. If the panel formed the view that they sought for that additional section to be finished in masonry, the city would have no objection to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions of the staff?
Just
Kind of question
On this particular point, sorry, yes.
Of the applicant, you said that in the notes there was you were noting a masonry fence. Can you tell me where I can find those?
Not off the top of my head. It is in, no, I can't stop my head, but I can guarantee you it's in there. Can I just clarify that we were of the opinion that it was masonry the entire length.
Okay.
So we're happy to make it masonry the whole. We were of the belief it was, so I didn't mean to mislead you there. We misunderstood the city's.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we've already committed to masonry, then we don't need to be so well.
Okay, thank you.
That's a 2 metre masonry.
Pardon?
2 metre masonry, is that what we're
That,
saying?
I mean, that I don't think we can get around because that's an acoustic requirement. So
Yeah.
if it needs to be 2 metres, we're happy to commit to the masonry element. We were of the belief it was anyway, so it's not a new thing to us.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that issue. It's required, and the condition can be strengthened if the panel so feels. Any further questions of the council staff?
Just one on the tree. I might ask if that tree remains on the design, is that then a requirement for the childcare to plant that and cultivate it? I think I'd feel a tiny bit more comfortable given the neighbours' concerns that something be added to either not require the tree to be planted in that location or to move it to another location, something like that. And I just want to hear the city's opinion.
Yeah, thank you to the chair. Yeah, the city would have no objection with the tree being relocated elsewhere. And we'd be expecting, the childcare operation to maintain that tree. So no objection from the city if it were to be relocated. On the basis we'd have to see an amended landscaping plan.
And through the chair, just adding on to that, the condition setting at present allows for the landscaping plan to be modified as to the city's satisfaction, so we wouldn't see a need to further amend the condition as it stands. So there's flexibility within the condition setting to allow that if deemed necessary. Thank you.
So from what I'm hearing is that both of the two concerns, which is the 2 metre high masonry fencing preference along that car park boundary and the tree in that location, Mr. Shaw's brought up, can both be addressed within the current conditions and no amendment is needed. Just wondering if that would be to the City of Stirling satisfaction, that we could enforce that, or at least monitor that as the conditions currently are.
Through the chair, the landscaping could be addressed with the current condition setting. The fencing would need to be modified. The condition would be modified slightly as it only references the outdoor play areas. So if it was to note something along the lines of masonry fencing or fencing to 2 metres in height along that western boundary, that would address that matter.
Awesome, thank you. I think we've lost the DAP panel.
Sorry, we had a bit of a problem there. Everyone dropped out. Thank you. We'll keep moving. Karen, where were we? Just query on condition 6.
Yes, sorry, I'm not sure how much of my question you actually heard before Zoom dropped out, but I'll just very quickly repeat. Thank you for providing a response to clarify what condition 6 ought to read, and you've provided us with an alternate for what was published. Just wanting to understand from you the process moving forward in terms of facilitating that reciprocal agreement. It's still, from the way the condition is worded, a little open, which I can understand, but how would you proceed with the applicant to clarify what's required, and would the city still be a party to that legal agreement?
Through the chair, thank you for the question. Based on the information provided by the applicant, a particular instrument hadn't been determined at that time. So the intent of that condition was to allow a variety of instruments to be applied in accordance with the city's local planning scheme. So once we will engage, or the applicant will engage with the city about which option they prefer, and we'll work to address that condition to ensure that reciprocal arrangement is provided. In regards to the city being a party to the agreement, that may happen, and there's provisions within the scheme that allow that. It would be dependent upon the instrument that the applicant ends up selecting, and whether or not the city sees as a need to be a party to that. So I guess based on the information submitted at this time, we've left that condition flexible.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Just another question from me. I presume the reciprocity would be the childcare with the shopping centre, not the other way around. Would that be correct? Seeing as you're going to have a gate at the, and I'll just ask the query, you are anticipating a gate at the entrance from Harborne Street to the childcare centre?
Through the chair, in regards to the access way, based on the plans, I believe that it's not gated. It's open to allow for access between the two. In regards to reciprocal arrangement, I would assume that it's largely to provide childcare or parking for the childcare on the shopping centre, but I guess depending on what the applicant pursues, they could go the other way, I guess, if someone wanted to park at the shopping centre, then go across the other, there wouldn't be necessarily a prohibition from the city's end, based on the information we've got at hand.
Okay, thank you.
One other, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right,
Karen Hyde again. Just we've had that discussion around the masonry wall alongside the residential property. And certainly figure 1 in the RAR is only showing it across part, and I understand that you've talked about that in terms of its relation to the play areas. But should the panel determine that they wish to see that masonry wall extended, and we've heard that the applicant was assuming that that might be the case along the boundary of the car park as it abuts the residential property of Mr. Shaw, would you suggest that there needs to be some changes to the wording of condition 4, or would you see that being facilitated through an additional condition?
Through the chair, it would probably be simpler to add an additional condition on, just given the wording of condition 4 largely relates to outdoor play areas. It might be simpler just to add a bespoke condition.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Have we exhausted the questions? If so, thank you very much, presenters. In that case, we can now move on to the item before us, and in order that we may commence discussion as a panel, I would like to seek a mover and seconder for the item. Can I have a mover?
I'll make
Karen Hyde. A seconder? Mr. Stein. Okay, thank you. Karen, the item, please.
Yes, thank you. I can understand from reading the Responsible Authority report that this is an area of growth of families, etc. The childcare centre is consistent with the zoning and the local policy to be close to a centre, which it is, almost adjacent. A number of technical reports have been provided which satisfy the majority of the technical considerations regarding traffic and noise, and further detail is scheduled to be added to landscape, and certainly for the parking there's an adequate arrangement through the conditions of proposed approval to associate with the adjoining retail facility. Relatively small in numbers, so I think that should not cause anybody too much disadvantage. So I'm comfortable with supporting the application, but I am mindful should anybody choose to suggest some additional conditions regarding the masonry walling adjacent to Mr. Shaw's property, that perhaps would be the beneficial outcome overall as well. But happy to leave my comments there at this point.
Thank you, Karen. John, Simon, would you like to?
Look, as far as childcare centres go, this is a fairly straightforward proposal. It's in a very good location, nice design, it's got plenty of well-landscaped area around it. I accept Mr. Shaw's concern. I think that the distance from the road regarding noise, the distance from the road and nature of the fencing, particularly if it's a masonry fence, will be more than adequate. Allay any concern like that from an acoustic point of view. Certainly, even a coloured one tends to have quite a bit of noise attenuation. A masonry fence, if that's the way we're going to go, which I think it is, and maybe reinforce that by an addition, would be, I think, more than adequate to I think the concern about the trees is an interesting one. The looking at the landscape reports, they are very substantial trees which have been here and difficult to find for anybody. But I think the landscape, now that this matter has been raised, I think the landscape plan needs to be submitted to the city for its further approval in detail. And I think any of those issues would be quite adequately.
Thank you. Councillors, any of you wish to speak to the item?
I just like to propose an amendment or adding of condition 27.
Okay.
And I'm happy to take advice on this, but I imagine it would read something like on the western boundary between the car park and the residential property, boundary fencing is to be of masonry construction at a minimum height of 2 meters.
Okay, 2 meters to the satisfaction of council, I presume.
Yes, to the satisfaction of City of Stirling.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Shaw, we're in our discussion on the matter now, determination. Okay, if that's an amending motion, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Ollo. Okay, we know the reasoning behind it, the discussion of it. I'll put that amended motion to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. And any other comments, Mr. Dudek?
No, otherwise, just I thank the applicant for being amenable to the concerns of the resident and engaging in the discussion. And overall, I think it looks like a good development. So I hope it works out that way and it's successful.
Thank you. Councillor Ollo, do you wish to make any comment?
No, thank you. Yes, like Councillor Dudak, I think it's a good development and I wish all the success to the developer and support the amendment that's been presented by Councillor Dudak. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's also a need to change condition number 6. So I'll seek a mover to amend condition number 6 from its current wording to that which was provided by council subsequently, so that it now reads: prior to the occupation of childcare premises, the reciprocal parking arrangement endorsed as part of this approval shall be formalised by way of any easement, restrictive covenant, right of way, or reciprocal access or circulation arrangement, and thereafter retained in perpetuity in the City of Stirling. Do I have a mover for that? Karen? Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Hyde? Sorry. Okay. Any debate on that? Discussion? If not, I'll put that amended clause 6 to the vote. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. I think I'll make my comments on the application. I think that it's a very good result for a site that is reasonably past its use by date for residential development. It's in an area where it's severely impacted by the commercial development next door and the traffic. A lot of the development along the road, as I observed yesterday, is fairly in need of either a substantial upgrade or renewal. The discretion sought by the applicants on a number of issues, such as increasing fencing height to reduce noise, it's acceptable. The car parking reciprocal arrangement is good. I think the adjoining shops and the centre co-locate well, and under this application is one of those that suits the planning policies for location of childcare premises, not smack bang in the middle of a residential area where there's a lot of adjoining owner concerns. So that's a good thing. I think the fact that the childcare centre operates at peak hours, early morning, late afternoon, takes away a lot of the conflict between shopping patrons, and of course some of the patrons of the shops will be the childcare centre tenants or users. So I think it's a good development, and with the conditions that we've just sought to, by way of putting in a higher fence, masonry fence to the western boundary, I think that'll cut back a lot of the noise because the distance is quite substantial. And having walked along that street yesterday, I certainly could hear a lot of the traffic noise, even with the house there and the shopping centre there. So that being the case, I will call on the mover to close debate on.
Thank you, presiding member. I don't think I need to say too much more. I thank the elected members for the amending motion that they've put forward and you've supported. I think that's a good outcome from the debate. I'm comfortable with the changes that the city proposed to condition 6. I'm comfortable with that amending motion too. So happy to close the debate and in support of the motion as proposed and amended.
Sorry, before you do close debate, can we consider another change in terms of specific reference to the tree? If not, the council will have to take note of that and act on it. Okay, probably end up with a bit more shade tree there. Okay, all right. Well, that being the case, I will now put the item as amended to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for all the participation. Presenters. Next item on the agenda is item 4, Form 2 DAP application. There are none. Item 5, there no section 31 SAT reconsideration. So on part C, all the SAT applications are listed. No general business. I'll close the meeting at 10:24 a.m. and thank those that are left for your participation. See you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.